The most American name in guns is owned by a farm family from Illinois. They did not inherit it. They bought it. The name Springfield Armory once belonged to the United States government, the arsenal George Washington's men founded in the Revolution that went on to build the rifle that won the Second World War. Then, one morning in 1968, the government shut that arsenal down and left its name lying on the ground. A trap shooter named Bob Reese mortgaged his family's farm, picked that name up, and built an empire. And the gun he built it on, the pistol that made his company a giant, was not even American. It was made in Croatia. Right now, somewhere in this country, someone is paying for that pistol. The classic Springfield Armory logo on the slide and a founding year, 1794. He believes he is buying 250 years of history. The company that sold it to him was founded in 1974, has no connection at all to the arsenal on his logo, and built that gun in a factory in a town called Karlovac, half a world away. None of that is a scandal. It is one of the great business stories in American guns, and it turns on one fact. The most valuable thing the old Springfield Armory ever made was not a rifle. It was its name. Subscribe and stay with me, because to see how a farm family ended up holding that name, you have to go back to the real arsenal, just for a moment. In 1777, with the Revolution going badly, George Washington's artillery chief, a former Boston bookseller named Henry Knox, chose a town on a bluff above a river in Massachusetts to store the Army's guns, Springfield. By 1794, it was a national armory, building weapons, not just keeping them. For nearly 2 centuries, it made the guns that armed America through every war it fought, from the muskets of the 1800s to the M1 Garand, the rifle a general called the greatest battle implement ever devised. Then, by the 1960s, the Pentagon decided it no longer needed its own arsenal. Private companies were cheaper, and the rifle that became the M16 was coming out of Colt, not a government workshop. So in 1968, it shut Springfield down. The machines went quiet, and the most storied name in American guns was suddenly sitting in the open, unprotected, free to whoever filed the paperwork first. The first person to pick it up was not the Reese family. It was a man in Texas named Elmer Ballance. When the arsenal closed, it left behind a hunger. A federal gun law passed in 1968 had choked off imported military surplus, and American shooters wanted a semi-automatic version of the Army's M14 battle rifle, which almost no one was making. Ballance started building one. He could not call it an M14, that was a military name, so he called it the M1A. And to sell it, he reached for the most powerful name available. He registered the trademark Springfield Armory, and he stamped it on his rifle. Within a few years, he wanted out, and he put the whole thing up for sale. The machinery, the parts, and that name. 600 miles north, in Geneseo, Illinois, a farmer named Bob Reese was about to make the BET of his life. He had been the best young trap shooter in North America, a champion at 17. He had farmed, sold farm equipment, and run a small Army surplus business out of buildings on the family land. When Balance's company came up for sale, Reese mortgaged the farm. Think about that. He put up the ground his family lived on, the land that fed them, against a dead arsenal's name and a rifle most Americans had never heard of. If the rifle did not sell, they did not lose a business. They lost the farm. 2 semi-trucks pulled up carrying everything Ballance had owned, and tucked inside were several shoeboxes, stuffed with hundreds of letters from men answering a magazine ad for that rifle. Order after order. Reese read them, and he understood what he was holding. The hunger was real. In 1974, Bob Reese, his wife Carol, and their son Dennis became the first 3 employees of a brand new company called Springfield Armory. On the day they opened, it was 3 people, a mortgaged farm, and a name that whispered 1794. None of that heritage was theirs by history. It was theirs by purchase. The only real thread back to George Washington's armory was the rifle itself, because the M14 it copied had been designed there. One rifle. Everything else was borrowed. For years, the M1A was the company, an expensive, well-made rifle with a loyal following. In the 1980s, they added pistols, classic 1911 45s. But by the turn of the century, Springfield Armory was a respected name with a narrow lineup. It needed a hit, a gun ordinary people would buy by the hundreds of thousands. It found one. It just was not American. To find it, you have to go to a country that, in the early 1990s, was fighting for its life. As Yugoslavia broke apart, Croatia went to war for independence, and a small Croatian company decided its new nation needed a pistol of its own. They called the first one the first Croatian pistol, and built it in 1991, in the middle of the fighting. It was rough. Making precision firearms while your country is at war is hard, and the early guns showed it. But a design team kept at it through the decade, until they had a tough, simple polymer pistol the Croatian army and police adopted. They called it the HS 2000. An importer tried to sell it in America under its Croatian name, and it went almost nowhere. Then, in 2002, Springfield Armory stepped in, bought the rights, and changed the one thing that mattered: the name. They called it the XD, for Extreme Duty, and put it out under the Springfield logo. The year 1794, and the company's claim to be the first name in American firearms. And it exploded. The same pistol that had flopped under its foreign name became one of the best-selling handguns in the country, a genuine rival to Glock. It won Handgun of the Year. Before long, the Croatian company, a firm called HS Produkt that almost no American buyer could name, was running almost entirely for the United States. Tens of thousands of pistols a month shipped from its factory to American gun counters, sold as the most American gun on the shelf. The name on the slide was famous. The company that actually built it was invisible. Stop on that. The first name in American firearms had built its empire on a pistol designed and made in Croatia, shipped across an ocean, and sold under a name borrowed from a dead American arsenal. The same trick, run twice. And it kept working. In 2018, a rival called Sig Sauer released a tiny pistol, the P365, that held far more rounds than anything its size and took over the concealed carry market. So Springfield went back to its Croatian partner for an answer. A year later came the Hellcat, a micro pistol nearly the same size that held one more round than the Sig. That one extra round was a war cry, and the Hellcat became a smash. But success that big draws lawyers. In May of 2021, Sig Sauer sued Springfield Armory, claiming the Hellcat copied the patented design that had made the P365 a phenomenon. Springfield now had to defend its biggest gun in a courtroom, with one of its best sellers on the line, the kind of fight that comes for any company big enough to threaten the giants. And there was a second fight, closer to home, that cut deeper, because the most fragile thing Springfield owns is not a patent. It is a reputation, and a borrowed reputation is the easiest kind to lose. For years, the company had been a favorite of the gun rights movement. When an Illinois governor floated a ban that threatened gun making in the state, Springfield pushed back hard and gave $1 million to a shooting sports endowment. Their customers loved them for it. Then, in 2017, during a fight in the state legislature over a bill to license gun dealers, a trade group the company belonged to was accused of helping the bill along. To many of Springfield's own customers, it looked like betrayal. A boycott flared. The company moved fast to say it had been misrepresented, that it was completely against the bill, and it kept fighting. But the moment showed something. When your whole brand is built on heritage and trust, your own people can turn on you in a weekend. Through all of it, the lawsuit, the boycott, the questions, the name kept selling. That is the strange power of what Bob Reese bought. A name that good is armor. Today, The two Springfield armories sit 1,000 miles apart, and they could not be more different. In Massachusetts, on the bluff where Henry Knox once pointed, the original armory is silent. It is the Springfield Armory National Historic Site now, a museum run by the Park Service. School groups walk past racks of muskets and rows of Garands, the actual rifles built by the actual institution, the one that armed the Republic and then was closed and forgotten by the government that built it. That Springfield Armory makes nothing anymore. It only remembers. In Geneseo, Illinois, the other one has never been more alive. The trucks still run, and the Springfield logo still ships, now on Croatian-made pistols, to more buyers than ever. Bob Reese died in 2019, at 87, a farmer who bet his land on an orphan name and won bigger than he could have dreamed. His son runs the company now. Here's the thing the old arsenal never knew. In 2 centuries of building rifles, the most valuable thing it ever made was not a musket or a Garand. It was its own name, and it gave that away for free, the day it closed the doors to whoever was standing there when it fell. A farm family from Illinois was standing there, so the next time you see that Springfield logo, look closely. It says 1794. The company is younger than the moon landing. The gun is probably from Croatia, and the date on the badge belongs to an institution that has been dead for over 50 years. If you have ever owned an old Springfield, tell me in the comments which one, and whether knowing all this changes how you see that stamp. And if you want more of the real stories behind the names on America's guns, subscribe and I will keep digging them up.